Imagine the year 1241. The world's most unstoppable force, the Mongol Tumans, stands at the gates of Europe. On the other side, the armored elite of the Crusades, warriors who believe they are backed by God. Today we break history to answer the ultimate question. What if the Mongols fought the Crusaders at full strength? By the mid-13th century, the Mongol Empire was no longer a nomadic tribe. It was a global superpower. They had swallowed China, Persia, and the Kievan Rus. Now their sights were set on the Great Sea of the West. Simultaneously, the Crusader states were clinging to the Levant, unaware that a storm was brewing behind them. For the Europeans, the Mongols weren't just soldiers, they were Tartars, literal demons from the pits of Tartarus. Rumors of their cruelty and speed arrived long before their scouts did. Meanwhile, Subutai, the Mongols' greatest strategist, viewed Europe not as a holy land, but as a collection of disorganized, feuding fiefdoms ripe for the taking. The Mongol war machine was built on merit and cold, hard logic. Every soldier was a cog in a perfectly tuned engine. In contrast, the Crusader armies were built on feudal loyalty and individual glory. It was a clash between the first modern professional army and the last great warriors of the medieval heroic age. To understand this fight, we must look at the weapons. The Mongol composite bow had a draw weight of up to 160 pounds, outranging European crossbows and penetrating all but the thickest gambesons. A Mongol horseman could fire 6 aimed arrows in a minute, creating a literal rain of death from a distance. The Crusaders brought the iron wall. A knight in full mail, and later transitional plate, was nearly invincible in a frontal charge. Their primary weapon was the lance, a one-hit kill tool designed to shatter formations. If they could close the gap, the Mongol light cavalry would be crushed like eggshells under a hammer. Our what-if scenario begins at the Battle of Legnica. Here the Mongols faced a combined force of Polish knights and the Order of the Templars. The Europeans expected a chivalrous fight, a head-on collision of brave men. Instead, they met a ghost army that refused to stay still and die. This was the Mongols' favorite trap. The heavy European horses carrying 300 pounds of man and metal quickly tired in the summer heat. As the knights' formation became ragged and stretched, the Mongols suddenly wheeled around. The retreating army vanished, replaced by fresh Tumans waiting in the wings of the hills. Did you know the Mongols were the first to use blitzkrieg tactics? While a European army moved 10 miles a day, the Mongols could cover 80. They used smoke signals and whistling arrows to communicate across miles of battlefield, acting as a single hive-minded organism against the shouting, disorganized knights. The Crusaders were baffled. They shouted for the Mongols to stand and fight like men, but the Mongols only answered with more arrows. The knights were being stung to death by 1,000 bees. Every time the Crusaders tried to charge, the Mongols melted away, only to reappear on their flanks. Once the knights were exhausted and their horses were dead or wounded, the Mongol heavy cavalry moved in. This was the end. The Keshig didn't just fight, they executed. Using hooks and ropes, they pulled knights off their saddles, finishing them with daggers through the visor of their helmets. Many historians argue that European castles would have stopped the Mongols. They are wrong. The Mongols were the masters of siege warfare. They recruited Chinese and Persian engineers who could build sophisticated catapults on site. They didn't just throw stones, they threw plague-ridden corpses and primitive explosive grenades over the walls. The psychological toll was massive. The Mongols used terror as a weapon. If a city resisted, every living soul was killed. To send a message to the next town, if a city surrendered, they were taxed but left alive. This binary choice broke the morale of Central Europe within months. By the time the Mongols reached the borders of the Holy Roman Empire, the Pope called for a new crusade. This wasn't for the Holy Land anymore. It was for the survival of Christendom. Knights from France, England, and Spain began to march east. The stage was set for a super battle. We are about to witness the hypothetical, final battle at the gates of Vienna. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the alternate timelines of history, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We drop massive what-if battles every week. Now back to the carnage. In our timeline, the great Khan Ogedei died, and the Mongols retreated to elect a new leader. But in this timeline, he lives. The Mongols cross the Danube. The Crusaders, learning from Legnica, stay in a tight defensive hedgehog formation, their long pikes bristling like a metal forest. The Mongols try their arrow storms, but the Crusaders have brought massive pavis shields. These are wooden walls that they plant in the ground. The arrows thud into the wood. For the first time, the Mongol reign of death is neutralized. The Crusader commander, a seasoned veteran, knows the Mongols want them to break rank. He holds the line. Hour after hour, the two sides trade projectiles. The air is thick with bolts, arrows, and the screams of the wounded. This is a stalemate of iron and will. Nature was often a Mongol ally. By turning the battlefield into a bog, they robbed the Crusaders of their stability. As the knights struggled to move in the rising muck, Subutai unleashed his secret weapon, the fire lance. Primitive flamethrowers and gunpowder tubes that spooked the European horses into a frenzy. This is where the warrior ethos failed. The Crusaders fought for individual honor, trying to win personal duels. The Mongols fought for the win. They used coordinated waves. One Tumen would attack, withdraw to rest, and be immediately replaced by a fresh one. The Crusaders never had a moment to breathe. Even in single combat, the Mongols had surprises. They wore silk undershirts. Silk doesn't break when an arrow hits. It wraps around the tip, allowing the arrow to be pulled out cleanly without tearing the flesh. The Crusaders, in their heavy mail, were often dead the moment their skin was pierced. If the Mongols had won at Vienna, the Renaissance might never have happened. The centers of learning in Italy and France would have been sacked. Europe would have become a vassal state of the Great Khan. Paying tribute to the East for centuries, the Age of Discovery would have started in Mongolia. The Pax Mongolica would have unified the world from London to Beijing. Trade would have flourished, but at the cost of millions of lives. And the destruction of European culture as we know it. The world today would be unrecognizable, a global empire under the eternal blue sky. But history is a fickle thing. A single heartbeat in Mongolia saved the West. The death of one man, Ogedei Khan, changed the fate of the world. The Mongols turned back, leaving Europe to its own destiny. We will never know for certain who would have truly won a total war between these two titans. But one thing is clear. When the Mongol horse met the Crusader iron, the world held its breath. History isn't just about what happened. It's about the terrifying almosts. Which side do you think would have ultimately held the line? Was it the knight's armor or the Mongol's bow? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out our other what-if scenarios on the screen now. I'm your narrator, and this is the path not taken.